Welcome to Above the Line live. I guess we're going to go live for this one. I'm on the road, but I wanted to get you all the content you deserved going live on TikTok, as well as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So good to see you all. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Taylor Kitchen. I talk about NASCAR all the time on the ATYL Media YouTube channel. So if you're not following that, make sure you're following. But let's talk all about the action at Mexico City, talking all about the race. If you are on TikTok, make sure to go over to my YouTube channel to watch the entire live stream with graphics and everything else. But yes, Shane Van Gisbergen wins in Mexico City, 16.5 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, ahead of second place finisher Christopher Bell. So pretty exciting there. So congrats to SVG, a major win for him. Obviously, I mean, he solidified himself on the road courses, right? And obviously going into this race too was a bit under the weather. In his post-race interview had said that he had been, having things exit him from multiple areas of his body. Not great, but nevertheless, I'm excited to see him get that win and kind of, solidify himself into the playoffs. Now, the whole thought process here and the frustrating part for a lot, which I can understand, is does SVG deserve a playoff spot? He was 33rd in points heading into this race weekend. It's your win and you're in. Listen, I'm not always going to be happy if a guy 30th on back in points is able to win their way into the playoffs, because until the beginning of this year or last year, was it? Thank you for the gift, by the way, on TikTok. Guys who were 30th or back in points were able to win their way into the playoffs. There was a whole rule set, and then NASCAR got away with that rule, or vanished that rule, for lack of better words. But yeah, SVG now in the playoffs, so we'll see what he can do. 2 of the 3 full-time Trackhouse cars are in the playoffs. Thoughts on Alex Bowman? Alex Bowman finishing in that 4th position. Are you surprised by Bowman's performance after what happened at Michigan? That's a question from Dakota over on TikTok. I'm personally not surprised. I honestly think Alex Bowman is such a good road course racer. I mean, you look at his stats at Circuit of the Americas, you look at his stats at the Roval, consistently inside the top 10 at those tracks. So there's clearly something here that worked out well for Alex Bowman. But considering the hard hit he had at Michigan, I guess, yes, a little surprised, but he was able to manage his pain, manage his discomfort, and go into Mexico City and perform the best that he could. But another reminder here, in case you're new, my name's Taylor Kitchen. I talk about NASCAR all the time on the road this weekend, so I don't have all my cool die-cast in the background, but here to talk about Mexico City. And so glad you are all joining me, whether it is on YouTube or on TikTok or on Facebook or on Twitter. Good to see you all. Nicholas, hello. Good to see you. Oh, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hoshvar. Let's talk about that. That was brought up in the TikTok chat over here. Yeah, so Carson Hoshvar said he just simply messed up, right? I believe, I don't want to say he overshot the turn. He just got into the curb weird and then ran into Stenhouse. And Stenhouse clearly was not pleased with that after the race. I'm trying to find the exact tweet about this that I had reposted. I believe Jordan Bianchi was one of the journalists who was able to follow up with not Carson Hoshvar, with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. after the race. And Stenhouse basically said to Hoshvar after the race, "I'm going to beat your butt," with kinder words kind of put in between there. He also said on his radio, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. said, "I tell him I will see him at Pocono." I'm trying to find this quote here from Jordan Bianchi. Here we go. Jordan Bianchi. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. went over to talk to Carson Hoshvar after the race. I asked Ricky what he told Carson. He said, quote, "I told him I was going to beat his butt once we got back to the States." And Josh Berry, in case you didn't see this video from Jordan Bianchi, just was like watching everything unfold. I'm going to pull it up on Twitter right now. I'm going to pull it up on my YouTube channel for those of you who are watching on YouTube and stuff like that. So let me pull up that video real quick, get rid of this overlay. But a really interesting top 10, a really big day for Haas Factory team with Cole Custer. He had been running inside the top 10 practically all race long, which to me, surprising for Cole Custer on a road course, not going to lie. Do you think we go back to Mexico City in the next year or go to Canada next year? That is a great question. Also, thank you so much for the gifts. I totally appreciate that. Here's my thing. The fan reception for Mexico City was so good. You saw the fans turn out at the track. Were the stands as full as I think we would have hoped? No. I think the stands could have been a little fuller than we saw. Regardless, though, I think the overall excitement around it was good. Now, here's the other thing as well. I do believe this race was marketed really well. I think NASCAR in Mexico City themselves put a considerable amount of effort into marketing this race. I think what hurt it, and you all saw this is what hurt Chicago as well, was the rain. Fans who are maybe unsure about NASCAR or unsure about the sport, they don't want to waste their hard-earned money, their dollars, on a race where they're going to be sitting in the rain the entire time. That's part of what I think maybe hindered part of the attendance there, but obviously there was lots of empty seats, right? So rain wasn't going to be the only factor here. I'm going to share my screen real quick on social media so you all can see Josh Perry just in the background. Josh, you're clearly upset with I'm going to show you that real quick. I also want to stop that video so I can hear myself talk. Do you think NASCAR has an issue by not having all the normal sponsors due to it being in Mexico City? Well, here's the thing. Different places have different limits and rules, right? I mean, you see this too, like different states with like Kyle Busch, for instance, with his sponsor 3Chi, 3Chi. There are some states where he's not able to have that sponsorship on the car because of, all that stuff. So I was like, I don't want to get into it here really, but different places could ban certain sponsors. So I don't necessarily think that was an issue necessarily. And obviously there's going to be a workaround where these teams and the marketers on these teams can go to different companies in Mexico City and say, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to get your company or whatever on a more national and in this case, or more global level. And so that's how you kind of work together. As somebody who's gotten sponsors for drivers in the past with my work with driver development companies, marketing for certain opportunities is not easy, especially if you're trying to market to, company in states where NASCAR doesn't have a large footprint, or marketing for races that doesn't have a large kind of audience or appeal. So it really takes a really good, team member with a marketing people on the teams to go after certain companies to kind of fill the void where maybe certain companies that you have on your car for an entire season are like, Mexico City doesn't really work for our company. We don't really have an audience there. Then these teams are like, oh shoot, we got to pull sponsorship from other places. So I don't think it's a huge issue, to be quite honest with you, at the end of the day. Where do you think Ty Gibbs goes from here? Seems like he panicked after falling through the field late. Yes. So I don't want to say Ty Gibbs, right word I would use for it, but obviously, it really came down to the decision of to pit or not to pit towards the end of stage 2. Ty Gibbs ended up pitting. SVG decided to stay. Ultimately is kind of what divided their strategy for race win. I think for Ty Gibbs, it's obviously a huge disappointment, right? It's a huge disappointment to be dominating a majority of the falling short, right? I see a few guys that have had great days today that haven't had a great day in a long time. I mean, you look at, let me pull up the results again, and also just saying it's phenomenal for Trackhouse Racing, obviously, to have a big step into global market with their team, going into MotoGP a few years ago and really kind of honing in on, we are an international brand. I think trying a team and like a global brand and a recognizable one. Obviously, I think when you kind of compare, the recognition of Trackhouse Racing to 23XI because of the star power with Michael Jordan, it's going to be different levels, right? But what Trackhouse has done has been really pushing their team more towards a global one of that. And you have stars like Connor Zilic, of course, they're now, of course, an American kid, but race levels as well. You have SVG, obviously, New Zealander, just kicking butt, obviously, when he was in supercars as well. Daniel Suarez, of course, winning the Xfinity Series race, went to a backup car, so started at the very tail end of the field in the Xfinity race and worked his way to the front, getting a really emotional hometown win for him, which was awesome to see. Hendrick had a great day outside of Kyle Larson too, and Larson just struggled, and obviously when the rain hit, didn't help them at all. But I mean, Larson's day started off poorly on lap 7 when Kyle Busch ended up just getting loose spinning. I mean, I believe it was Zane Smith that actually got loose like right behind him as well. So it was just a treacherous part of the track. And then of course, in that spin from Kyle Busch, ended up clipping the 5 of Kyle Larson. And obviously some of that damage to the number 5 was going to throw out their day regardless. What do you think about SVG? like him, love him. I really do think SVG is so good for our sport. And the kind of attitude that he presents is so good. And he really does fit Trackhouse's mold. I mean, you have the fun celebrations, the kind of grit and fight attitude. Really cool to see him win an international race. And I do believe, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the stat for this weekend is this is the first time ever in NASCAR across all national series that competed in one weekend. So I'm going to say this is going to be Xfinity and Cup that I guess non-US native drivers have swept the weekend, which I think is pretty cool too. Hey, Logano did not win, Alan. You were correct. Logano did not win. Adam, Lucas, very exciting here. I know a lot of y'all in the comments are Shane Van Gisbergen fans or just Trackhouse fans in general. Obviously, a great past few weeks for Trackhouse Racing we have Ross Chastain winning the 600. I was able to see that win in person, and it was thrilling to say the least. Obviously, then, of course, Suarez winning the race for, I guess, in Junior Motorsports Equipment in the number 9 in the Xfinity Series, winning that race yesterday. And then, of course, SVG winning this race today. Hunter, good to see you. Yes, lots of congratulations to SVG. Thoughts on Ryan Truex? Did not have a great day. I mean, he was really thrown into this later in the week. And, of course, to talk about this, we have to say a big congratulations to Denny Hamlin on the birth of his son. He and his fiance Jordan's son. So very exciting news there. And he had said prior to the weekend, he was like, hey, if my son is not born by the time I have to leave, which was Thursday, then I am not going to Mexico City. It was a big priority for him, and rightfully so, to be there for his fiance and to be there for the birth of his baby boy, and made the decision. So Ryan Truex filled in for Denny Hamlin while he was gone. And obviously, not the day that Ryan Truex wanted. It was good to see a Truex in the field again in the Cup Series, but man, really was thrown into it. Ryan didn't get a whole lot of sim time for this track to begin with, so it was already going to be rushed anyways. But yes, no, there we go. Truex was there to fill that sponsorship obligation, and that's true. And you want to have that car continue to run so it's still eligible for an owner's championship. Now, obviously, owner's championship points can be kept regardless, but you want to keep somebody in that car so you can still fight for owner's championship points. So you still can get that waiver. This is why you have backup drivers, so that car can still fight for the driver's championship as well. So there's a lot more than just sponsorship obligations in play here. There are championship implications as well. Let me read the rest of your results for this race, just so we're all in the know. Of course, all these results right now are unofficial. We still have to go through post-race tech, and I am keeping my fingers crossed that everything remains okay with post-race tech. But obviously, SVG, let me put the results back on the screen for y'all here. If you are on YouTube, make sure, if you guys aren't subscribed to the ATYL Media YouTube channel, make sure you do. I talk about NASCAR all the time, as you know, but I have an incredible team there that talks about Formula One, IndyCar, NHRA. We talk some sim racing as well, but it's a good time over on the ATYL Media channel. But of course, our top 10 results, in case you're just tuning in, let's talk about it. SVG finishing in that first position, obviously. Christopher Bell in second. And what was so funny about him finishing second, if you heard him after the race, he was like, I could have done more. He was disappointed in second. Let that sink in for a second. Christopher Bell knew he probably could have done better. And going into this track, he was pretty frustrated with himself that he wasn't performing better. He just didn't feel like he had this figured out. And for somebody who already has multiple wins this season, and he's like, I could have done better, and second is bad for him, watch out to the rest of the competition. And third place, Chase Elliott. This is his first top 3 finish since Martinsville last fall. Now, obviously, you kind of take the gap of the season, like last fall, Martinsville, that was the second to the last race of the season. Yes, he did finish first at Bowman Gray, but I'm counting only points races here, so give me a break. But good to see Chase Elliott inside the top 3 again. Kind of a rarity, but still fun nonetheless. Alex Bowman fourth, a great result for him. We talked about how he had gotten in that really horrible head-on collision into the safer barrier at Michigan. Was cleared to race this week. Good to see that he's doing well and was able to finish inside the top 5. Alex Bowman is a underrated road course racer. I think I can speak for all of us here when we look at his results. I talked about it earlier. Circuit of the Americas, just top 10s across the board for him there. Roval, top 10s across the board for him there. He's really good at road course races, and that was not different here for Mexico City. 5th place, Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell and road courses go hand in hand. We remember him winning at the Indy road course a few years ago, so we knew he was going to do pretty decent. I'm glad he did. John Henry Nemechek rallied for a top 10 finish in the 6th position. 7th, Chase Briscoe. 8th, Cole Custer. And here's the thing with Cole Custer. I'm going to look at his results here because, hold on. 2025. Having Cole Custer finish outside the top 10 is such a rarity. Such a rarity. I mean, we all knew going into the season when he announced he was going back to the Cup Series, it was like, okay, what can us factory team reasonably do? I know they kept some of the same employees. Obviously, going from a 4-cup car operation down to 1 is going to be very different. And I say very different, going down from 4 to 1. It is different ownership, same place. They still have their whole facility in Kannapolis. It's just Haas factory team now, different ownership, etc. But yeah, you look at Cole Custer's results. I'm not counting points paying races. At North Wilkesboro, he finished 9th, but this is his first top 10 of the season, guys. And it was a convincing top 10 too. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a strategy pull. Cole Custer raced inside the top 10 practically all day. So it was great to see that for Cole Custer. Obviously, if we look at the rest of our results, 9th, William Byron, 10th, Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher was one of the favorites to win this race. Ultimately did not work out for him at the end of the day, but still had a strong car. If you look at the rest of your results, other drivers that really do stick out to me this race, AJ Allmendinger, early damage due to that Kyle Busch incident, rallied back for 13th. Ryan Blaney, by the way, had a fantastic car, was running a pretty decent strategy as well, trying to flip the stages and finish 14th, so not bad at the end of the day. Ryan Preece could have had such a better day. A spin towards the middle end of the race kind of derailed his day a little bit, but not bad. Ross Chastain also had a pretty decent day, but a late spin in the race caused him to finish outside the top 15. Daniel Suarez, the hometown hero here, finishing in that 19th position. You scroll down the line here. I'm like trying to see if there's anyone else that like stuck out to me. Catherine Legg, in case you guys were curious, 32nd. Ty Dillon had an awesome race brewing. I really did, and finished 33rd, unfortunately. Of course, Kyle Larson damaged first half of the race. He ended up running to the end of the race, but obviously finishing 36th. Zane Smith was out, and Kyle Busch, of course, first one out. And they were very confident about their car, too, so I hated to see that. Thanks for the gifts, of course, on TikTok. Speaking of how they scored points at Canada today, good day for the organization. Yeah, no, great day for the organization. Yeah, Blaney top 15, we'll take it. Did you expect the aggressiveness to pick up with in-season challenge coming up? Now, here's the thing with the in-season challenge, and I am so glad that you mentioned this, Richie. I think it will shake things up, but it's really putting it at a really interesting and kind of scary point in the season, because this is where these teams are going to start to get really anxious about their playoff hopes. And now that somebody who was outside the top 33 in points has won their way into the playoffs, the points picture looks completely different. Now, if I go to the NASCAR app, because I'm trying to still figure out if the points have updated or not, I have not gotten an email from NASCAR with the updated standings, so please stand by. After Michigan. Okay, so I still have the playoff points after Michigan, so nothing is set in stone yet. But obviously, with SVG winning his way in, that's going to shift everyone down. With this in-season tournament, you're going to be battling, do I want to fight for $1 million, which in today's world for those teams, it's good, but it's still not a lot, right? Do you want to fight for $1 million, or do you want to fight the long game for a championship? Ultimately, the fight for $1 million and how they're seeding these results to get these teams closer and closer to that head-to-head battle for the $1 million between two drivers, it's going to promote a win in your end, because you need to finish ahead of the guy that you are battling against. So it will promote more aggressive racing, I will say. I think the in-season tournament will produce more aggressive racing on track. I think we're going to see potentially more, off-track incidents brew potentially. And I think, too, if you're a driver like Carson Hocevar, with this in-season tournament coming up, you're going to have to think, shoot, okay, well, I'm probably not going to win $1 million because I've been aggressive leading up to this. Other drivers have kind of every right to give it back to me now, especially when there's money on the line. So that's something I think about as well. Thanks for subscribing to the lives on TikTok. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, what a weekend for Trackhouse Racing. Very good. Nicholas on YouTube said, it was amazing seeing Daniel Suarez winning yesterday in SVG. Welcome to the NASCAR playoffs. But I do have a question. Why does every feel-good storyline always end when they start talking? So I'm going to assume, when we start talking about the playoffs, because SVG was 30-something in points before he won a few minutes ago. That's the thing, too. We have these feel-good storylines, and because of the confines of the NASCAR playoff system, these feel-good storylines get dampened a little bit. I think it would be awesome if it was just SVG won an international race. He won in the dominant 15 seconds ahead of second place. I think that storyline is enough. Then you add on that element of, Well, now he's locked into the playoffs, which in hindsight would be a pretty good thing, right? But then you realize he was 33rd in points. And it's like, how can we justify somebody who was 33rd in points going into the playoffs? How do we justify that? The playoffs are supposed to be the 16 best drivers in the field fighting for a championship at the end of the season that says that they were the best driver all year long. And we've had the same conversation with Joey Logano winning the championship last year, with Ryan Blaney, with Chase Elliott. Like, we've had this conversation with the win and you're in format. But this conversation comes into question much more when the win you're in is no longer conducive to just the top 30 in points. It goes for all drivers in the field. Here's my thing with SVG, though. This is the part of the season where he can shine, right? We might say he's not worthy of it right now, but there's a lot of road courses coming up on the schedule. And this is the moment where he needs to back up and prove that he deserves to be in the playoffs. Now, if you look at the playoff schedule, it's not road course heavy. So I don't expect SVG to make it past the first round of the playoffs, and I'd love to be proven wrong. But that said, the playoffs are not structured to be in his favor. But I do think now that he's in the playoffs, he has to back it up. I think SVG is a world-class racer. I think he is a phenomenal race car driver with exceptional talent. There is no doubt he is one of the best race car drivers in the world, and making that jump from supercars all the way over to NASCAR, I think, is astonishing. But that said, the thought process in my brain of the win and you're in and how that sours a win sometimes, it doesn't leave my mind. So I want him to back up that win. And I think he can do that with these road course races coming up. At the start of the season, I made some bold predictions, and I said that he would win back-to-back road course races. The next road course race we have coming up on the schedule, I believe, is either Sonoma or Chicago. 2025 NASCAR schedule. If I could spell while I'm typing really fast, that'd be so cool. I'm like, that'd be awesome. Oh, the Glen. Is the Glen next? No. Okay, so it is. Okay. So the next race we have at a road course is going to be the Chicago Street Course. We know how good SVG did there. His first go around in NASCAR and his first go around at Chicago, it was a win at the Chicago Street Course. So I think he could win back-to-back road course races, as is my prediction at the start of the season. I think he could definitely do that, with the Chicago Street Course being the next one coming up on the schedule. Then after the Chicago Street Course, we have another road course, which was Sonoma. So again, more back-to-back road courses. Then after Sonoma, you go into the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive at Dover. You go to Indy, you go to Iowa, then we go back to the Glen. And then after that point, we have a little bit of a break before we go into another road course race. By the way, good to see you all tuning in on social media platforms all across the board. Do you think Shane's win puts more pressure on Daniel to perform? Yes, I do. Obviously, Daniel Suarez winning in Xfinity is awesome. I think it's great to see that he was able to get a win in the number 9 with the Junior Motorsports equipment. Now, I don't want to damper that win, because it was such an impressive win and it was such a phenomenal moment. But you have to think Daniel Suarez is able to win in good equipment in the Xfinity Series. He hasn't been able to win in good equipment in the Cup Series as often as we would like. Winning Atlanta last year was phenomenal. It was awesome. But now that you have one of the drivers who was questionable going into this season with a full-time run in the Cup Series, winning a race and is likely to win more this season with road courses coming up on the schedule, you have Ross Chastain almost putting on not a clinic at the 600, because he made the pass with like less than 4 laps to go to win against William Byron, but putting on kind of a masterclass of how to really take advantage of the leader and get the lead. You have 2 drivers that have had success this season and another driver that hasn't. And this other driver just so happens to be somebody who doesn't have a contract signed for 2026. So yes, I think part of it puts him in the hot seat, but here's the thing too. Do you think that Connor Zilisch is ready for a full-time Cup ride? No. I think he needs another season or 2 in the Xfinity Series, and his contract with Junior Motorsports is a multi-year deal. That said, I think because of all those factors and because SVG is still developing as a full-time Cup Series driver, I really do think Suarez's seat is safe, but that doesn't negate the fact that he still probably is feeling some pressure to perform. But that Xfinity win does have to feel pretty sweet. Aubrey? Hello. I was at the 600 when Ross won. It's nice to see Trackhouse getting results again. Oh my gosh, I can tell you. I can tell you. So I was at the 600 race and we were like, oh my gosh, William Byron's going to win this. He dominated the race. I was at Darlington as well, where he dominated the race and it just slipped from his fingers when we had that overtime restart, right? Obviously there was when he made pit stops, that's where he lost it there too with Darlington. But going to the 600, I'm like, okay, We're going to see William Byron get redemption. And then you saw Ross kind of creeping up through the field, and you were like, Trackhouse is good at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It might not always end well for them at that track. I think through multiple wrecks with their drivers involved the past few years. But you think about how good Trackhouse has been, they just haven't been able to close it out at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and finally Ross Chastain did, and the whole place erupted. Typically after a race, you see people leaving the stands in droves, left and right, because it's not their favorite drive or whatever. Practically everybody stayed in the stands after Ross Chastain won, and that said something at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The popularity of Ross Chastain, of his racing, of the win, of the celebration, it said something, right? So it was awesome to see him get that win. Willie, thanks so much. Check out my recent TikTok and see my new diecast stands I got. Pretty neat. Oh, can't wait to see them. Thank you so much for the gifts. Yes, Stenhouse and Carson again. My goodness. My goodness. I think the problem with SVG is that he's going to a new tracks almost every week. And that's the thing too. I think when you think about, is Suarez safe? Is SVG expendable? It's SVG is going to new tracks regularly. And yes, he is a world-class racer, but he's also a rookie in the Cup Series for his first full-time stint. So you're going to give him a lot more grace as opposed to maybe another driver who's not getting the results, who's been in the series for multiple years. Briscoe, thanks so much for tuning in to our show on Twitter. Thanks so much for tuning in. All 303 of you over on YouTube and Twitter. Good to see you all so much. And all of you over on TikTok. Good to see you all. It's supercars. I love this comment. I'm not going to put it on the screen, Denver, but I do like this. It's supercars middle finger to all NASCAR drivers for not being good enough at road courses. Wait till the supercar drivers invade the Cup Series and Xfinity Series in the next couple of months. And remember, Brody Kostecki coming back in as well, right? Was it Brody Kostecki? We're going to be having some other drivers, compete in these road courses. And this gives other drivers, maybe internationally, even too within the United States, that want to try their hand at NASCAR for maybe a one-off event. It gives them a chance to really shine because they know road courses so well. And you think about this too, drivers who were decent at road courses in the Gen 6 era are not really figuring it out in the Gen 7 era. They kept harping on the fact that Chase Elliott has won 7 road courses. And I'm like, cool. Tell me something I don't know. We all know Chase Elliott has won 7 road courses. Most of those at least, in the Gen 7 era. That doesn't help what we're seeing now, right? Or sorry, in the Gen 6 era, apologies. Most of the road course races that Chase Elliott has won have been in the Gen 6 era. That stat saying he's won 7 road courses is awesome, but it doesn't pertain to what we know now. It's just, when are we going to see Chase Elliott finally figure out road courses in the Gen 7? And that, we don't know. But he's getting closer. With this 3rd place finish at Mexico City, it's a good sign, just altogether, period. But yeah, it's a matter of these drivers needing to figure it out more. But here's the thing too, you've seen Chris Buescher do so well at road courses. Tyler Reddick, not a factor at all. I was pretty shocked by that. You see Alex Bowman doing really well at road course racing. AJ Allmendinger is a shoo-in to win the Roval practically every year, right? So you have drivers that are really good, and then you bring in a supercars driver, or you bring in an IMSA driver, or something like that to try their hand at NASCAR on a road course, and they're just better. But they're better because road course racing is their bread and butter. They don't race on ovals. So you kind of flip the script there, where if a NASCAR driver, let's say supercars decides to race on 3 overs or something like that a year, and a NASCAR driver is able to go over, which is impossible with our schedule, but is able to go over. I guarantee you a NASCAR driver would win a supercars race on an oval because that's what NASCAR drivers know. I know there's some differences there too, but that's just what they know. Kyle Busch, what about Kyle Busch do we want to talk about here? Really tough for him, a wreck on lap 7. He really thought he could push the car more than he actually could with the track conditions and spun out. Any last minute questions, comments, concerns we want to talk about with the race? I know this is going to be a little bit of a shorter live, but I wanted to kind of let you all kind of chat it out. Any questions, comments, concerns with Mexico City? If I were to give this race a race rating above or below the yellow line, in case you're new here, this is what we do with Above the Yellow Line, the show that we have going on right now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. I tend to rate the races above or below the yellow line on this web show. Above the yellow line is what you want. It's above a 50%. That means this race was good, decent, stellar, exciting, phenomenal. Below the yellow line is obviously not good. You don't want to race below the yellow line. It means this race kind of sucked. I'm not going to lie. And to be completely honest with you all, since I am traveling and since I have been really focused on family and stuff, this race, I felt really checked out. But with the product we saw on track outside of the restarts, I don't want to say I had a reason to be checked out, But it was the current state of road course racing in this Gen 7 car is kind of what we had on display here. Obviously, some people could say, oh, SVG having the lead like 16 and a half seconds ahead of second place when he came to the line is what did it for me. That's what made this race awful. I think domination in a race is not a bad thing. I think we need to kind of get it out of our heads that domination from one driver in a race or in a season is bad. It makes it less interesting, but it's not bad. I think I'd give this race probably like a 60 or 50%. It didn't intrigue me like I was hoping it would. And like I said, just being very candid with you, I was a bit checked out of this race this weekend. But even with that in mind, going back and watching some of the clips, it just didn't grab me like I thought it would. So 50, 60%. I'm curious what you all think, though, in the comments. Let me know how you would rate this race, because I know it's just my opinion. I value your opinions way more than sharing my own. Mexico or Montreal? Ooh, that's a great question. I would love to see us run Montreal again. I would love to see Montreal come back into the NASCAR space at some capacity, whether it is just Xfinity Series or whether we do bring, the Cup Series there too. I think it'd be so fun. We have a large audience in Canada that are NASCAR fans that are just waiting for Montreal to come back. And I think it'd be really fun, to be quite honest with you. Thought it was good. 70. Britain said 70. Brighton, I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Wasn't very interesting, but glad SVG was able to get the win. That's good. I like this race better than Sonoma and Pocono. Whoa, okay, tomato. Sonoma and Pocono. I guess I should say apples and oranges here. Road course versus a 3-turn track. Very different. Could happen. It could happen next year with F1 changing the date next year. Also, I will say shout out to the journalists who were at the track. Obviously, I couldn't pay my way to Mexico City. Lots of us independent journalists couldn't. But you saw Jordan Bianchi was there. Jeff Gluck was there. You saw Matt Weaver doing great content at the track, showing the experience, what it was like to report on the race, what the fans were like. Having fans like basically mob Todd Gilliland, you don't see that in the United States. You would see Todd Gilliland walking around at the Daytona 500 without a fan in sight sometimes, which, by the way, put some respect on Todd Gilliland's name. He's a cool guy. Be a fan of him. But at Mexico, they were swarming these drivers left and right, and just seeing that appreciation for the sport and how cool they thought it was really cool. So I don't know. It was interesting. I would like to see us continue to go international. I think my thought process is maybe we don't make it a points paying race. I think in this case it was justified to be a points paying race in the sense that it was a road course. It's a course that these drivers are really used to. It wasn't a test or trial. The only test or trial with this event was, are we going to get an audience if we go internationally? And yes, the stands weren't as full as I think they should have been for this, but it wasn't bad altogether. I enjoyed us going to Mexico City. Now, I will say, if we're going back to Mexico City next year, or going internationally next year, do not make these teams travel from Michigan to Mexico again. You cannot do that to these teams. Plan it better. Make it to where we have the 600, and then maybe they go internationally. Because at that point, you're having, depending on the next year's schedule, if we still go to North Wilkesboro for the All-Star race, you have 2 races in North Carolina in the span of a month. That's 2 weeks at home. Then you go internationally to Mexico City, Montreal, wherever you want it to be. And you're giving these teams time to like have everything at their home base and then go from their home base all the way to international, wherever you want to go. So I think that's smarter in the long run. Aubrey, you said 60. I'm having trouble picking between Le Mans, Montreal, and Mexico. There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on today in the racing world all at the same time. And by the way, IndyCar is happening like in a minute. So I'm going to have to go for that. 7 out of 10, decent racing, great passing zones throughout the track. I will say, yeah, Alex, you're completely right here. There were some great passing zones around the track. And you also saw this weekend that track limits really didn't matter. NASCAR kind of used their discretion with track limits, which not bad. I quite honestly like that better. And Steve Letarte made this point where he's like, I like NASCAR's hands-off policy with the track limits this weekend, where it's like he's hoping and expecting these drivers to police it themselves, which I think was very, very smart. And you saw Michael McDowell on one of the restarts got shuffled out. He made a pass in the grass just to get back on track because he was forced off track, but he was able to lay off the aggressiveness to kind of file back in line where he should have been. And I think going forward, we need to maintain that same type of thing. Yes, track limits are I guess, more prominent when you get to tracks, maybe like Circuit of the Americas or even like the Roval, where they're very strict on track limits. But give the drivers a chance to correct it first, as opposed to thinking they're just going to cut through and penalizing them right there. Yeah, no, IndyCar tonight is they're at Gateway tonight, in the lights. Yeah, don't forget about IndyCar. They are literally going to be starting their race right now, so I'm going to get going. But thank you all so much for tuning in to Above the Yellow Line. We should be back with your regularly scheduled program next Sunday, right after the race, with a full length video, not a live stream, but a full length video after Pocono. Very excited. There's going to be a lot of lead up to Pocono on this channel. We got to talk with the head of marketing at Pocono last week to kind of gear you up for the race weekend. We might have some driver interviews on the show as well this week to gear up for Pocono. So stay tuned for all of our insight from the tricky triangle there. But thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy IndyCar. And for more content from me, in case you're not following me already, go to the ATYL Media channel on YouTube. If you're not following it already, that's where we have all of our NASCAR coverage, IndyCar, Formula One, and all of that. The IndyCar race will be on Fox. All of the races are on Fox this year, so make sure to check that out. See you all next time, and I will catch you later. Bye, everyone. Ooh, there we go. Goodbye. TikTok, I said goodbye. Everyone over on Twitter, YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you all joining me today. By the way, for all of the race recaps that I do that are pre-recorded, I end up going live after those are posted. So it's another way for us to interact here as well. And I do those lives over on TikTok. So every Sunday, if you see me posting a video roughly like 2-ish hours after a race, you'll likely find me on TikTok as that is uploading or once that has uploaded. So the conversation doesn't stop after I make that upload, or the conversation isn't always going to be not there like we're doing now if I'm not traveling or if I don't do a live. So be on the lookout for more lives on TikTok for more interactions. And of course, on this platform right here on Wednesday, we're going to have our live stream as well, previewing Pocono, talking about NASCAR news and so much more. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Taylor Kitchen. Thanks for watching Above the Yellow Line live today.